Morning you guys, it's Karen and coming to you from yet another location. Long story short, we've got contractors in. We had a leak in the bathroom and it's just sort of ruined everything, and so that needs to be sorted out, and the contractors are kind of traipsing. There's a lot of stuff in the hall and they're traipsing through the hall, through the kitchen, into the back garden to do all the cutting. So that rules out kind of the kitchen, and I moved everything out of the bathroom and put it into my studio. So that leaves me with the living room. I actually quite like filming in here. The only thing is the sun might interfere. I'll try as much as I can to move around when I notice it. Okay, so today we are talking about concealers and powders. So I really actually enjoy doing this smaller videos because it means I can talk about more things, because they're, you know, I can have a lot of favorites, and sometimes if I'm doing a full, say, face makeup video, I'll need to cut it down to 2 per category or whatever, but here I can tell you about a lot more. So I think it's working out well for both of us, for all of us, I mean. So I have got 2 loose powders and about 4 compact powders, and then concealers and one other kind of under eye product, or a couple of under eye products actually. Let me talk about my loose powders first. This first one, I'm not 100% sure that this is still available in this colour lace, because I looked for it. There are a couple of places you can buy it, but they're sort of not the mainstream like Superdrug, etc. But I really like this baking powder by Revolution. You can see that I've sort of used almost all that pot, but I don't use it from the pot. I actually tip it into its own little, just an old loose powder miniature pot, or I've got a Mercier one that's kind of a deluxe travel size. It's perfect, but I do really like this. But they still do the baking powder, I know that. So I am going to try the baking powder in, I think it's called Banana Light, and see how I get on with that. But I've loved that for a long while and still do. I do really like the finish of loose powders. I feel like loose powders give a slightly more perfected look, and you know, the coverage is a bit better. But I'm such a klutz at putting makeup on. I'm just so heavy-handed that I tend to make a right mess when I'm using loose powders. Sometimes I'll like choke myself, you know, I've put too much on and so I end up coughing. But I think that I go through phases as well where I'm like, right, I'm using loose powders, and then I'm just like, oh, I'm fed up with this mess, and I go back to compact powders, you know. So yeah, I like them both. I don't think many people use compact powders nowadays, do they? But my other favourite loose powder is this one by No7. This is called Perfect Light, a loose powder, and this one is in Fair. Hopefully you can see the colour. It's a little bit difficult, I think, with the sun shining, but I've got this in 2 colours before. There's Fair and another colour, I can't remember what it is, maybe Light, and they both seem to work for me. I'm not sure which one suits me the better, but I've used this No7 powder for many years, and although No7 isn't as cheap as like Revolution or other drugstore ones, it lasts for such a long time that I don't mind, you know, paying out for this one, because it is very long lasting. Like, I can't remember when I bought this. It was a couple of years ago, but I still use it and I still enjoy it. Okay, onto the compact powders. Let me start with my high-end one. I'm polishing it up so it doesn't look so grubby. It's the Urban Decay. This is actually not a setting powder. This is it's called Stay Naked, The Fix. Mine is in 30 NN, so it's actually a foundation, a powder foundation. So you can see that I've used a fair amount of that. And underneath there is a sponge, which I just don't use. I just used a brush with this, funny enough. But I really like this, and I can't think what foundation I would have used it with. It was maybe a CC cream or something. But if you've got a foundation that you find too light, and I know that happens because there's a few that I've reviewed where people have said it's not full enough coverage for me, or it's not, you know, even medium coverage, whatever, then you can use a powder foundation like this to kind of make the coverage a bit better, you know, and sort of touch up in the kind of T-zone. Exactly what I said. I used the KVD foundation. That's like a compact foundation, but I've used this for that as well. You know, it's really nice, but it's actually a really nice setting powder as well. It's just got a little bit more coverage, you know, so if you've got a little bit more to cover, this would be great, and it keeps everything kind of just so. I like my face to be pretty matte, I have to say, but I'm not looking for any kind of luminous look or any kind of glow, but I don't want it to look too caked on, and even though that's a foundation, it doesn't look caked. Okay, then the other 3 compact foundations are all drugstore, and I'm pretty impressed because I have used them up almost. This one here is by Collection, and it's called Primes and Ready Invisible Setting Powder, and look how much of that I've used up. So I'll probably chuck this, to be honest, because Collection are, you know, this will have been £4 or £5, and normally, even when I was like super skint and only had 1 powder, I wouldn't use every single bit around the edge, because I'd find at some point it would break up. and just disappear. And so normally when it gets a little bit more than that, I would just throw it away. And this is a compact puff that was from Mercier, I believed. But this is a great powder. This one, is it just come in one colour? Invisible Setting Powder 01. So that's by Collection. Then this one by e.l.f. I've used this for quite a while as well. It's the Sheer Tint Finishing Powder. And again, you can see I have used quite a lot of that. So again, I'll probably throw those two because they're inexpensive and I've definitely got, you know, a lot to use up. But they're ones that I would purchase again, and I don't see much difference between the three of these, but they're all really good for that sort of matte finish, taking away any kind of shine, and not looking too cakey. And I just use them with, you know, a big fluffy brush normally. So that's another good one. And then this is the one I have been using. I've been using this for the last 3 weeks, actually, since I bought it. It doesn't look like I have, but I have, I promise. This is by Essence. I bought this in Cambridge. I was with my mum and we saw a Wilko, and I was like, oh my God, Wilko, they might do Essence makeup. I have got a Wilko here, but it doesn't do any Essence makeup. And actually it's quite far away, but I would go there to have a look at the Essence makeup if I could. So, I bought this and a couple of other things, and I really like this. This is 11 Pastel Beige, and it is the mattifying compact powder. I actually thought that this might come off pretty quickly, but this feels quite sturdy. You know, the packaging feels quite sturdy, and it's quite compact is probably the wrong word for it. But out of the three of them, it's the sort of slimmest and sleekest, and I like that. And I really like the powder. The only thing about this one, I would say I need to go in with my brush a little bit more to get powder, you know, to get my whole face covered than I do with the other two. These are a little bit more, they don't kick up a lot, but you get more on your brush when you put your brush in, whereas I have to go in a few times with this, but I don't mind that at all. That's absolutely fine for me, so I love that one. So those three compact powders are just perfect for me. Okay, onto concealers. Now, I was going to tell you about the Ordinary concealer because, now did I tell you this at the beginning? I can't remember. I had to film this again because the sun was just ruining things. But in my last video, I talked about the Ordinary foundation, and somebody told me that the Ordinary foundation and concealers are being discontinued. So I'm gutted about that because I love that foundation, as I talked about, but also I love the Ordinary concealer and would have mentioned it in this video. Well, I am mentioning it because it is really good and it's full coverage. I do think it draws a little bit of attention, you know, now that I've got these dark circles that I'm working with. When I watched that video where I mentioned the dark circles, I don't know whether it was in the I'm struggling video or whether it was in, I don't know, but they just look terrible. I think I'm doing a bit of a better job now of covering them, and I've got this perfect little combination, if you like. But when I put the Ordinary concealer on, I did need to do that thing where I sort of really avoided my, you know, avoid putting too much on. I had to use a mini beauty blender and sort of blend it out, otherwise it could look a little bit too cakey. But what was my point in that? Oh, I'm not going to go and buy a ton of foundation or concealer from the Ordinary, because if something is discontinued, I used to do that, going, oh, I've got to go and buy them all up. But one thing, it means that when I'm doing videos for you guys in the future, if I'm using something, I can't tell you about it. And I also feel terrible if that happens. But also, at some point, I'm going to have to find a replacement for it, you know, so I may as well start now because it's discontinued. Because that happened with my NYX eyeliner. Do you remember I tried to buy some? I think I ended up only buying two. And I still got one. But it's like, well, I still don't know what I'm going to use as an eyeliner when that runs out, you know, so... Anyway, onto my little magic. Like I said, I feel like this area, just in this video and possibly the last one, looks a little bit better. Although I have to say, I do look nicer on the iPhone than I do on my camera. I'm using my iPhone in here. I don't know why. It's just better for the lighting on my iPhone. But this little combination I've got going on is really working for me. So this is the concealer that I've been using. This is my two new ones. This is the Revolution Eye Bright, it's called. It's just, oh, I must have used that one to test out the colour, because I bought two different colours. I bought fair and light. I wasn't sure which was the right colour, and I'm about to run out of my other one. So it's called Eye Bright, and I can't read the rest because I haven't got my glasses. But I think it's Under Eye Concealer it's called. But underneath this, and this is the only concealer that I've got to show you as a favourite, underneath this, I started using this Beauty Pie, and this is called Super Luminous Under Eye Genius Corrector, and this is in light to medium. So that's what it looks like. It's actually quite sticky, you know, it doesn't sort of dry down this. It's not like a concealer. So I've just been putting my little finger in there. Actually, I tried it with a beauty blender. It's better with a little finger, and then just tapping it in that bit there, because that bit there, right there, is where that black is, the, you know, the dark circle or the darkness. So I've been tapping it on there. Then I go over it with my Revolution Under Eye Concealer. And then I've been using, I don't use this all the time to be honest, but I've been using this, this is the Oh Pretty puff. If you've watched TikTok, you will have seen this, I'm sure, because it pops up everywhere. And it looks like a miracle, you know, this, every single video, even the woman from Oh Pretty, they're telling her that she's using filters and it doesn't work, but she does seem to make it work. I don't know how, but just using any sort of under eye powder. She puts her concealer on, then she comes on camera and you can see that she's got these like dark circles or bags. I've seen it on quite a few people. They dip it in the powder, tap it off, and then go in with this puff like this, and then all of a sudden it's gone, you know. Well, I've tried that on a couple of different powders, and I have to say the puff doesn't work miracles on me, but it is quite nice to apply because it's got that little point, and you know, you're making sure you're getting everything in to where it needs to go, like so. So I put on my Beauty Pie Genius Corrector, then I go in with my Revolution Under Eye Concealer, then I get my puff out, and I've been using this is the e.l.f. under eye powder. I'm not sure how easily you'll be able to get this, but it's definitely available. I checked before I mentioned it. I'll try and find something else that's very similar as well, because this isn't one that is, you know, you get those invisible setting powders. I have tried this puff with those as well, you know, like the MAC, it's a MAC one, and a lot of them now, they're that sort of, they look white, but they're very, very, very fine, and they're sort of invisible. I don't really like those, but this has actually got a colour to it. But I've used this again for quite a while. Oh, sorry, wobbling you and chucking this everywhere. I told you I was klutzy. But I just sort of tap it on, I sort of put a little bit of powder on like that, scrape it off the edge and tap it so that there's not much left, and then just kind of powder under my eyes. And that has been working pretty well for me. I think that's everything, isn't it? Yeah, I forget about how short these videos are. I did tell you about my loose powders, didn't I? I'm so confused because, like I said, I filmed this video a couple of times because of the lighting and whatnot. Yeah, that's everything for my concealers and powders. I hope that you enjoyed that. Let me tell you what I'm wearing. I've got on the RCMA foundation. I thought I'd put it on because I mentioned it in the last video. So RCMA foundation. On my eyes is the Huda Beauty Rose Gold Palette Remastered. On my cheeks is the Fenty Beauty Blush in Summertime Wine. And on my lips is a liquid lipstick by Martine called Josetta. And then I just put a little bit of gloss on top. Where is my gloss? I thought I had it here. I've been moving things around. Oh, there it is. I don't know whether this is still available. It's the Madison X Morphe lip gloss. I just put a little bit onto my lips there. That's everything. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.